Okay, today we're going to start chapter 10 and we're going to do 10.1 today, which is all about perimeter. And in this chapter, there's going to be a quiz after section 10.3. So what is perimeter? I'm sure you've heard about perimeter in the past, whether it was in middle school or last year. It's something that always comes up in math. Okay, and the perimeter is the total distance around the edge of a figure. And how do you find the perimeter of any object? You're going to add all the sides of the figure, no matter what it is. So simple examples before we get into geometry level examples. Let's find the perimeter of each figure. So in part A, we want to find the perimeter of that triangle. So all we're going to do is add all three sides together. So 7 plus 5 plus 6. And when we add those together, we should get an answer of 18. So the perimeter of that triangle is 18. For the figure in part B, again, lots of different sides here. We're just going to add them all together. I'll start on the top with the 95 plus 65 plus 45 plus 75 plus 75 plus 45 plus 65. Again, when you have a figure that has a lot of sides, I would enter it into the calculator twice. There's no point in getting points off because you entered something into the calculator wrong. So easy to make a typo. When you add all those sides together, you should get an answer of 465. For number 2, it says if one side of a regular pentagon measures 12.1 centimeters, find its perimeter. So the first thing that we have to know is how many sides a pentagon has. Again, a pentagon has 5 sides. Again, the word regular, that's going back a couple chapters, means that all of your sides are equal. So if one side is 12.1, all 5 sides are 12.1. So you can either add 12.1 5 times or just do 12.1 times 5. When you do that, you should get an answer of 60.5. For number 3, the endpoints of one side of a regular octagon are -2, 4, and 3, 1. What is the perimeter of the octagon? Again, regular meaning all sides are equal. Octagon means that it has 8 sides. So if I can find the length of one side, then I'll know the length of all 8. Again, if I'm given 2 ordered pairs, and I need to know what the length is going to be the same thing as distance. So we're going to use the distance formula here. And again, just because it's been a while since we've used it, distance is going to be x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Okay, so I'll call my first ordered pair x1, y1, and my second one x2, y2. So we'll plug in here. X1 minus x2 is going to be -2 minus 3, and we'll square that. And for y1 minus y2, we'll have 4 minus 1, and we need to square that. So -2 minus 3, again, please use your calculator here. Again, no point in getting points off because you can't subtract. -2 minus 3 is -5, so we're going to have -5 squared, and 4 minus 1 is 3, so we'll have -5 squared plus 3 squared. Again, please, if you're using your calculator, you must put that -5 inside a set of parentheses. A negative number squared is positive. -5 squared is 25, and 3 squared is 9. 25 plus 9 should give me an answer of 34. So I'm going to have the square root of 34. Okay, it doesn't say whether or not this has to be in decimal form or radical form, so we might as well just leave it in radical form. It's easy to do that way. Hey, one side is radical 34. That means all 8 sides are going to be radical 34. So I'm going to do 8 times radical 34. And again, we can leave it in radical form. So 8 radical 34 is going to be your final answer there. For number 4, we want to find the perimeter of the triangle in simplest radical form. Okay, so for line segment AB, I can very simply just count to find that length. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 units. And I could do the same thing for BC. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, what I can't do is I can't count the length of AC the way I just counted the other two sides. So you could do one of two things. You can find what A and C are as ordered pairs and use the distance formula, just like we did in the last question. Or this is a right triangle, so we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find that missing side. Again, B is where your right angle is, so the only thing that we need to make sure of is that we put AC in for our hypotenuse. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I'm going to do 4 squared plus 7 squared equals, I'll call it X squared. C squared, you can leave it as C squared, it doesn't matter, but that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the hypotenuse here. 4 squared is 16. 7 squared is 49. So 16 plus 49 is going to equal X squared. And 16 plus 49 is going to give you an answer of 65. So 65 is going to equal X squared. The opposite of squaring something is taking the square root. The square root of X squared is just X. And I can't do anything with the square root of 65. Again, it says in simplest radical form. Hey, if I were to try to simplify radical 65, again, I'd be looking for a perfect square that's a factor of 65. There isn't one. So radical 65 is already in simplest radical form. So that's the length over here. So now again, perimeter, I'm going to add all the sides. So I'm adding 7 plus 4 plus radical 65. Hey, again, you cannot add a number outside the Rudy house and a number inside the Rudy house, but I can add the 7 and the 4. So that's going to be 11 plus radical 65. This is how it is going to stay. Those are not like terms. You cannot combine them. It's like trying to combine X plus Y. Can't happen. Hey, again, if you had flipped that around because the order that you add in doesn't matter, you would have ended up with radical 65 plus 11. Same exact thing. Hey, and the same thing happens. You can't combine anything there, so that would be your final answer there. For number 5, an enclosure has the shape of a trapezoid as shown below, and we want to determine the length of the side of AD first and then determine the perimeter. Okay, so obviously if we want to find the perimeter, we need side AD to begin with. Okay, so to find side AD, all I'm going to do is drop another altitude from D down to AB. Okay, that's going to make the figure here that I'm highlighting in purple a rectangle. Okay, and opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent. So if the side up here is 11, that means this small purple piece over here is also 11. But if the whole length of AB is 17, if I take 17 and subtract out the 11 that I used for the rectangle, that's going to leave me with 6 for the piece of that triangle. Okay, and again, if this is a rectangle and this side is 8, that means this altitude over here is also 8. So now to find AD, I have a right triangle that I'll highlight in this burnt orange color here. That's my right triangle. So again, I had one missing side of a right triangle, which means I can use the Pythagorean theorem. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Again, the side opposite the right angle has to go in for C. So X has to go in for C. Doesn't matter how you plug in A and B. So 6 squared plus 8 squared is going to equal X squared. 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. So I'm going to have 36 plus 64 equals X squared. When I add those together, I'm going to have 100 equals X squared. The opposite of squaring something is to take the square root. Square root of X squared is just X, and the square root of 100 is 10. So now that means that that side is 10. So now to find the perimeter of ABCD, again, we're adding the outside, and just be careful. This 8 on the inside over here is not on the outside of the figure. And on the bottom, just be careful. We're going to use that full 17. Don't add the 6 and 11 in 2 times there. So I'm going to have 10 plus 11 plus 8 plus 17. And when you add all those together, you should get an answer of 46. Okay. Last part of this question, if the enclosure is to be fenced in on all sides with fencing that costs 75 cents per linear foot, how much will it cost to enclose this trapezoid? Okay, so very simply, if the whole perimeter is 46 feet and each foot costs 75 cents, all I'm going to do is multiply the 46 feet times the cost, which is 75 cents. And when you do that, you're going to get an answer. It comes out to 34.5. So in terms of dollars and cents, that would be $34.50. Okay, and our last question, number 6, we have a wooden frame is to be made using wood that costs $1.25 per linear foot. The frame is in the shape of the right triangle shown below. Determine the overall cost of making this frame and show all of your work. Okay, so similar to the last problem, I'm first going to find the perimeter and I'm going to multiply the perimeter times the cost. Okay, the problem is here, unlike the other 2 triangles that we did in this section, you're only given one side of that right triangle. You cannot use the Pythagorean theorem on this question, at least not at first. Pythagorean theorem, you can only be missing one side. You're missing 2 sides. I'm going to call this side X and this side Y. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find X. How am I going to do that? I was also given this acute angle of 32 over here. That means that I'm going to have to bring back in my SOHCAHTOA. I remember with SOHCAHTOA, you only need one angle and one side of the right triangle to find a missing side. So let's find X first. So with relation to that 32, X is the side directly opposite 32, and directly opposite your right angle is your hypotenuse. So the trig function that deals with the opposite and the hypotenuse at the same time is going to be your sine. So we're going to have the sine of 32 equals the side opposite is X over your hypotenuse, which is 12. Again, just make sure, because it's been a while since we've done trig, that your calculator, if you have one of the TI 83, 84, whatever, that it's in degree mode. Because again, if you don't have it in degree mode, it's going to give you a wrong answer. So again, just double check, make sure you're getting the same answer as me. So again, we're going to stick that over 1 and cross multiply. So we're going to have 12 times the sine of 32 equals X. So inside your calculator, when you do 12 times the sine of 32, you should end up with an answer of 6.36 rounded to the nearest hundredth. So there's the value of X. So now I need to find Y. So now, since you know this side is 6.36, you could use the Pythagorean theorem now to find that third side. Or again, just to keep reviewing trig here, I'm going to end up using trig again to find my Y value. Okay, so I'll stick with 32. Okay, and again, you could use this side over here, but I'm going to stick with this side and this side to make my next trig function. So with relation to 32 now, again, the 12 is always going to be the hypotenuse no matter what. That means Y, that's going to be your side that's directly adjacent to 32. So now I have the hypotenuse and the adjacent. Oh, I spelled SOHCAHTOA wrong up there. Sorry, missing an H. Okay, so the side, the trig function that deals with the adjacent and the hypotenuse at the same time is the cosine. So this time we're going to do the cosine of 32 equals the side adjacent, which is Y, over the hypotenuse, which is 12. Same deal. We'll chuck that over 1 and cross multiply. So I'm going to have Y equals 12 times the cosine of 32. And again, when you chuck that into the calculator, you should get an answer of 10.18. So there's your third side of your triangle. So now the next thing that I need to do is I need to find the perimeter. So for the perimeter, we're going to add all of our sides together. So our sides here are 12 plus 6.36 plus 10.18. And when you add all those together, you should get an answer of 29.17. So there's your perimeter, but I'm still not done again because they wanted to know the cost. So now I'm going to take that perimeter and I'm going to multiply it by the cost per foot, which was $1.75. And when you do that, you're going to get an answer of 36.46. So $36.46 is going to be the total cost to get that picture frame made. And that is it for this section.